Okay, so here is the second topic that we cover in development for IB psychology, developing as a learner, and this particular part of that topic is theories of cognitive development. Okay, you're going to be watching a couple of clips of children interacting with their parents. Note down 3 ways that the children's thinking, which you can see in their behaviour and their language, is very different to how adults think. So you might want to go to the next slide, show a clip, pause it, write your ideas down, and then do with the same with the next one. Here are the clips, and that you need to spend quite a few minutes making your comments and watching the clips. Okay, Jean Piaget is the main theorist that we are looking for at here. He was highly influential. The first person really who thought that children's thinking was worth studying. Up until this point, no one had really thought that children were very worthy of research. So he was quite revolutionary in this field. Okay, so, we do know that children are different in terms of what age they are and what they can do, how they see the world, their cognitive skills. So have a look at the next page and decide which of these toys should go with particular age groups. And arrange it in chronological order. So arrange it from the youngest of babies to older children. At what age would these toys be most suitable for children? So pause the presentation here while you decide that. Okay, so we're looking at Piaget's theory of cognitive development, and here are the main points of that theory. Although it's not a biological theory, it does stem, Piaget claimed that it stemmed from nature, that everybody was born with an innate urge to explore the world around them. It's maturational, which means that it depends on age. So Piaget argued that whatever skills a child has will depend on the age they are. He didn't take anything into account, such as environment, home life, culture, etc. He developed an idea of schemas. You will already know about schemas from your Year 1 study, about building up mental representations of the world. There are 4 stages to his theory, which we'll look at later. And Piaget's theory can be tested via specific experiments. Have a look at this. Pause the presentation here and look up what these terms mean. So, in terms of schemas, assimilation is the idea that you will add information that fits to your schema. Accommodation means when a piece of information that doesn't already fit into the schema, it doesn't seem to make sense to you, is your schema is adapted to make concessions for that. So, for example, 3-year-old child has a bird schema. And this is what her bird schema is. There you see it. But then she sees a penguin. And someone tells her it's a bird. This is disequilibrium. Her schema for birds has been unbalanced. So what she has to do is make accommodation. She has to accommodate the new information that some birds can't fly, some birds eat fish, some birds can walk/waddle. So this information is then assimilated into her bird schema. Her bird schema has grown. So when you're writing an essay on Piaget, you could focus a little bit on schema and talk about how Piaget saw it as the essential building blocks for cognitive development. Okay, so ask yourself all of these questions as they come up. Pause the presentation and write down your ideas. So the first question, what does innate mean? Pause after every question, pause and see if you can come up with your own ideas. And again, what are the physiological reflexes that children are born with? What does drive to explore the environment actually mean? So have a think about it and note down your ideas. And here's the final question for you to think about and write down your ideas. So we have 4 stages for Piaget's theory. It's linked to maturation, and Piaget claimed that his theory was completely universal. He didn't make any allowances for culture, for individual differences, for differences in family life, environment, education levels, the role of peers and siblings. So it is a very broad, one-size-fits-all theory. So you're probably already seeing that there are issues with this. Here are the 4 stages of cognitive development. The stage we're most interested in is this stage, the pre-operational stage. Sensory motor stage we'll look at a little bit. These 2 stages are not interesting for us as psychologists. This is the most interesting stage because a child of 2 is very different to a child of 7. There is a huge amount of cognitive development that happens in this age group, much more so than in any of the other age groups. And this is where most of the testing of children using Piaget's method is used. So obviously you are not in a group, you are doing this on your own, but have a go anyway. Look up all of these different aspects of Piaget's theory in terms of the stages and what children can do in those stages. So pause the presentation here and have a go at that. So we'll start with the sensory motor stage. This is all, as it seems to suggest, about movement, physicality. Young children up to the age of 2 are intensely physical creatures. They don't reason, they don't think very much. They use their bodies, they use their senses to discover the world. So object permanence is the way that you can tell that a child is at the right stage of development for this particular stage. So pause the presentation here and watch this clip about object permanence. Now this is the stage we're really interested in, the pre-operational stage. It's the one where you'll probably find most testing of children occurs. So Piaget argued that children can't carry out mental operations during this stage, which is to some extent debatable. If you asked a 7-year-old child, what's 3 plus 3? I would be very surprised if that 7-year-old child didn't say 6. That's a mental operation. So, there is some room for criticism with Piaget's theory, although lots of aspects of his theory are valid. One of the major characteristics is egocentrism, which means the inability to take another's point of view. Now, anyone who knows a small child knows that there is truth in that. Children find it very difficult to understand that another person may have a different viewpoint to them. They are very much focused on themselves. And the main issue here is conservation. This is nothing to do with wildlife and the rainforests and rare animals. This is a different type of conservation. So this video here is a really good example of conservation tests. They're very amusing videos actually. They're very, very fun. They're a lot of fun to watch. So pause the presentation here and have a look at it. Now you've had a look at what a child does in a conservation task. A little bit like you did when you wrote your IA, write down the procedure that you would go through as a researcher if you were carrying out a conservation task. What is the step-by-step procedure? And remember not to be ambiguous and say then they do it. Do what? Who does what? Be very clear about every single stage. So pause the presentation here and have a go at that. So there is a version of the procedure of a conservation task for you to read through. Basically, have a go at filling in the blanks. So pause it here and have a go, and then see if it makes sense to you. The concrete operational stage, we're not massively interested in. You might want to reference it briefly in an essay. It simply means that children are progressing. They can carry out more abstract tasks. They can think in more sophisticated ways. Formal operational stage is the last stage, and it is meant to signify when you become an adult. You could debate abstract principles and the formal operational stage, some adults can't think like this, so it's not necessarily linked to age, because some adults still struggle to be objective and logical and to use abstract concepts. Right, this is the key study here, one of the key studies we'll look at. So it's in the core companion. Read through it and let's make some notes on these issues here. So you have a look through it and you make some notes. Obviously, find the study, come back to this page and note down your ideas. There's a quick test for you to do there, just to test yourself on what you understand so far by Piaget's theory. Egocentrism is not what you think it means. It doesn't mean someone's got a big ego and they think they're wonderful. This obviously we can't do from home, but imagine you're in the class and we're doing it. That's what egocentrism means. If you are egocentric, you would not be able to understand that another person can see things differently to you. If you were asked to describe what they can see, you might describe what you can see. People with autism, particularly children with autism, find it very, very difficult to be able to understand that other people have a different viewpoint to theirs. Here is the 3 mountains task. This is an example of a test of egocentrism. Here is the test being performed. So pause the presentation here and have a go. Okay, I'm just experiencing a little bit of, oh, there we are. I thought my computer had frozen, but it had temporarily. Think, pair, share. What are 3 major criticisms of this task? Think about the reliability of it. If you replicated it, would you be, with a similar sample, would you be confident of getting the same results? Is it a valid test of egocentrism? What is it about the setup? What is it about the nature of the task that may alienate or exclude certain children? Is it generalizable? What about the ethics? Is this an ethnocentric study? Okay, so we have already got one study of conservation, Samuel and Bryant. Now, it might be an idea to look at 1 or 2, certainly 1, maybe 2 of these studies. Piaget and Inhelder, that's the original 3 mountain study that you've just watched, that you've just seen. These 2 studies here from 1975 are adaptations of that same 3 mountain study, and they, like Samuel and Bryant did, they have improved the procedure so that it's easier for children to comprehend and understand. Because one of the issues with the 3 mountain study is it's unnecessarily messy and complicated. Personally, I don't think I could do it very well because I'm not used to being surrounded by mountains. I wouldn't be able to tell one mountain from another. It's not structured enough. It's too dependent on a child's environment, what they're used to looking at. If you're a Swiss child, you probably be okay. If you're from the Bronx in New York City, it's not going to be a lot of use to you being able to identify different mountains. So these are 2 studies here which take the idea of egocentrism and adapt them to show that actually Piaget wasn't entirely correct. These are old studies. If you can find newer studies of egocentrism, that would be a good idea, but there isn't a lot of research in this area that's very recent. So you may just want to choose one of these 2. So 3 paragraphs here, some practice writing the type of essays, the type of paragraphs that you would expect to find in an essay. So pause it here, really practice that writing. And there we are, we're back at the beginning. That is the end of the presentation.